Okay, fam, welcome back. So today I'm going to be going over most of the major Bitcoin and crypto assets, the main ones that we look at with the. I finally found it. It took me a while to remember what it was. The Bitcoin hash ribbons indicator. So with that being said, let's get it. All right. So this is a major indicator that we do sometimes, not always, but we do sometimes use to kind of determine lows on the market. So as you guys can see, not quite at this low here on Bitcoin back during July of 58,000, but shortly after that, we hit the actual low for Bitcoin. As of right now, you guys can see we're in an uptrend, but back then the low came shortly after this indicator popped up. Okay. So this indicator is not perfect, but it is very accurate for the most part. Okay, you can see we got one back here, August 23. What happened? We pretty much were at the lows at that point, and then boom, took off like a rocket. Not immediately, but again, the goal of this indicator is not to signal that we're going up immediately. That's more so the MACD and kind of the other stuff we look at. This is to signal basically that likely the price is going to go up from here. Okay. Whether it's immediate or not is anybody's guess. So you can see we got one back here in January 2023. It took off massively after that. And then, of course, we can go back even further in time. 2021, boom, took off almost immediately when we saw that signal. Back here, pretty much right as we were testing all-time highs, got another one of these signals, boom, took off to 70K. I mean, they're pretty rare to pop up on the weekly, but they do pop up. Okay. So it's just to show you guys how significant these signals actually are. We've only had maybe a handful of them over the last couple of cycles. So right here, after the major black swan dump of 2020, we recovered, then went sideways. Guess what happened right around July 2020? Boom, got a buy signal. What happened? We moved up from 9K to 12K. Shortly after the bottom of the black swan dump, we got another buy signal in April 2020 at about 7,000, moved up to 10,000. Even after this kind of fading the move of the mini bull run here in 2019. Pretty much not quite at the bottom, but pretty close to the lows at 6,000 in December of 2019. We moved up from 6,900 to about 10,200. And of course, your bear market lows back there in 2019, almost perfectly exactly at the lows. Took a little while to move up, but it did more or less go pretty much straight up from that point. Okay, so this video is pretty much just going to be about this indicator. So we're going to use this to kind of gauge potentially where the markets might be going. So you can see that we got one back here on the weekly a little bit earlier in the year in this kind of bull flag formation here. But the thing I did want to show you guys here is not the weekly so much. It's actually the daily I wanted to show you. So this is interesting, okay? So we got the buy signal. I'm pretty sure I told you guys this, but we got the buy signal. No, maybe I didn't tell you guys here. Maybe I told you back here during this time frame, 64,000. Turns out that wasn't the bottom. The weekly would have actually been a better indicator in this situation. Again, that's one of the reasons why we take a look at the weekly time frame. So this was not actually the bottom. You can see it signaled right here on this green candle, but then of course we went much lower. So again, not perfect, but there is a reason why we use this in conjunction with other indicators to kind of get a better picture of what we're looking at here. But this buy signal did pop up again recently, right after we had this massive explosion above these swing highs, okay, on the daily time frame. And what have we done since then? We've moved up. And so that's pretty much the indicator for Bitcoin. Again, pretty much the synopsis of this is we'll typically only use this on the weekly time frame. This is kind of a more macro time frame buy signal indicator. Usually every time we get one, the price just, I mean, these guys, these are not small moves, okay? These are nothing but small. I mean, look at this, 194% here. This one, if we measure it from the low there to the next time we got the signal, it's about 84%. Again, that was coming off the bear market lows. 84% off the bear market lows is a big move. You guys may not think it's big, but it's actually pretty big. I mean, the S&P returns 10% on average per year. You just got 8 years worth of returns buying Bitcoin at the bottom using this signal. This signal right here, from the low to the high, 134%. And then again, even all the way up to, from the breaking of the all-time highs in the last cycle to the actual all-time highs in 2021, 333% move. I could actually use this with even another, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so I could use this even with another asset. So we could take a look at Ethereum. You can see Ethereum actually got one recently. This one was a little bit more accurate, a little bit off there on the candles. So the next candle was actually the low here, but you can see ever since then we have moved up. Even with something like Ethereum, this works very effectively, okay? So again, not quite the low, moved down a little bit from there, but if we measure this from here to that swing high, you can see it was a massive move, 120%. Again, there was a slight drop below that, but again, it's not going to be perfect. You can see this pretty much nailed the low here, up about 83%. This one did not exactly nail the low. This was kind of a false signal, but that does happen pretty much with any indicator. So 40% move. All right, so I just want to have some fun with this and take a look at some of these grayscale trusts because you guys are probably wondering, oh, do it on the grayscale trusts. Okay, I'll do it on the grayscale trusts if you guys insist. Okay, so before I go over the current indicator, I actually want to go back and look and see if this is actually accurate because, again, when you're testing any strategy going forward in time, you always want to do back testing on the strategy, okay? Always, always, always. When we did our day trading strategies and swing trading strategies, the first thing we did is say, okay, here's our strategy. We're going back in time on some of these charts to use these indicators to look and see, like, say, out of maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 trades, how much of a percentage out of that number of trades are profitable, okay? If 8 out of 10 trades are profitable, that's an 80% win rate. If we get 30 out of 50, that's 60%. Okay, we need to know those kinds of numbers. So that's the reason why we're going back in time. All right, so previous buy signal here, you can pretty much see this was basically pretty much at the lows. So again, if we did this from buy signal to buy signal, you're still talking about 1,100% gain. Buy signal to the peak, 2,600. So you got another one back here. This was basically in the middle of LTCN dumping. But again, if you had bought this and held it to resistance, again, if you use support and resistance with this, it should have been a no-brainer. So buy here, sell here, 110% gain. Why would I say it's a no-brainer? Because again, you can kind of see where these candles touched and then popped off. And then we had a previous kind of resistance or rejection candle here. So it would have been obvious to take profit there, in my opinion. Of course, if you haven't been doing this for a long time, it would be much harder to be able to tell. And then we have another buy signal early back here in 2021. Again, this is not going to be perfect, okay? So you can see this one would have actually not been a great time to buy if you had bought in conjunction with this buy signal and treated this zone here as support and say, well, I'm not going to touch this thing until it gets to 200. Then maybe you could have kind of sold in that maybe 400-ish area for a small profit, 125%. This late in the game, personally, I wouldn't have touched LTCN, but it's just the idea that the indicator does give us some, well, exactly what it sounds like, an indication that price is probably going to move in one direction or another. So we got the buy signal back here after this gap down. It was actually on the gap down candle that we got it. And what has happened ever since, we've been moving up, okay? So the moves on LTCN have been monstrous. They've been huge. So that tells me, because of the fact that we got a buy signal here, we got one on Bitcoin, which again, Bitcoin is the leader. Okay, that usually everything else follows that. So because of the fact that we're getting these two in conjunction with each other tells me likely this is it. Okay, LTCN is probably going to be continuously moving up from here going into the end of the year, maybe even started next year. We literally just got another buy signal for BCHG. You can see it, not just a big fat candle, but also the buy signal here. We got another one back here, but this obviously wasn't quite the bottom. This was actually a fake out. But again, we got one down here. What happened? BCHG pretty much went up from there. I can actually measure this for you guys to show you. This is like, man, I can't even measure this move. It's so big. So it's roughly about 1,480%. And again, we got another one here at the bear market lows. well, two of them actually. We got two indicators back here at the bear market lows. Yeah, this was okay. That's not going to be entirely accurate. Let me actually see if I can get this a little bit more accurate, because it wasn't at like 2 cents back then. I think it was at like roughly about 30 something cents, roughly about a 5,500% gain. So again, if you had used this in conjunction with support and said, okay, well, so just price is just kind of chopping sideways here at support, you're getting that buy indicator, maybe I'll think about buying some. You know what I mean? Again, not financial advice, but that's kind of how I would have seen it if that was the case. We can actually even take a look at something like Filecoin. This is one that we have. So if I zoom out here, you guys can see we did actually recently get the buy signal right here, pretty much as we were chopping sideways at support, just like LTCN. So we got one back here. Again, it wasn't a perfect signal, but we would ideally want to buy at the support zone because it's a pretty good area to buy, even if we didn't get the sell signal. But, regardless, from the sell signal to that swing high, about 182% move. Okay, let me zoom out here a little bit. So we got one here. Again, this is kind of a thrust indicator. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but thrust indicators usually indicate like there's a massive switch in volume. So usually when that, like the buyer volume is overpowering the sellers, you'll get a signal like this. So about an 81% move. This move back here was absolutely insane. And again, it's why it's key to use this with support. This is a buy indicator, so you probably don't want to be using this when price is already seriously elevated. But you can see this move here is 650%. And if I go back even more, you can see we got another signal here pretty much at that support, kind of like what we're getting now. And the move was just absolutely stupid. So almost 9,000% gain. Once again, it's not a perfect indicator, but we can kind of use it to gauge likely what's going to happen next. Okay, that's pretty much what this is telling us. What is likely going to happen next? So you can see we got one from what is a CLSK, basically at the gap down here, and then we got another one here. So in my opinion, that combined with price action, it looks likely CLSK is going to keep moving up. And again, we got one back here. This did not time the bottom perfectly, but I mean, CLSK was dirt cheap at this point. It was $6 and it was kind of chopping around in kind of this range here, if you can see it. So I wouldn't have been too concerned about it. I probably would have bought this anyways. About a 357% gain from that trigger all the way to the high. Same thing back here. This was actually a little bit lower in price, so this would have been about a 900% gain. Once again, it's probably best to use these indicators in conjunction with support levels or bear market lows. I mean, we did get an indicator here, and it did go up a lot. But again, we would use this in conjunction with kind of the bear market lows or support and also the timing of the cycle. So 266% move here. You can see we got that double signal, kind of like what we're getting now, back during that previous bear market before Bitcoin ripped in the halving year. Roughly about the same time, about a few months prior in the previous cycle, and then just took off like a rocket to the upside. Massive moves here. Okay, so I'm gonna actually take a look at a couple more. So we'll take a look at Mara, because I know that's a very popular one in the investing world, is Mara. And we're not really going to use this for every single asset going forward. We'll mainly just use it for Bitcoin. We're not really going to use it for everything else. It's kind of just going to be for Bitcoin. But we're using this for other assets just to show you how effective this is. So, yeah, the price still dumped after this one. But again, like I said before, probably not a good idea to use these indicators on elevated prices. So what would we be looking for? We're looking for kind of a bottom here in price, which we did get. You can see here. So we got that buy signal. Theoretically, this should go up. And then this one, again, this was kind of a fake out because we already had a pump. Once again, like I said before, it's good to use this in conjunction with price action. So back here, this would have actually been a good one. Again, this was pretty close to the bear market lows. And it was kind of sitting roughly about support. Not perfect, but still pretty good indication, 350% move. And kind of on this mid-cycle low here, you can see it took off to the upside on that indication. Talking about this one right here. And again, this thing took off like a beast to the upside, 204% gain. Okay, so I'm just actually kind of curious. I want to take a look at let's take a look at Coinbase and MicroStrategy because I'm curious to see how it's going to work with these. Okay, so if I go back in time here before we take a look at the forward ones, you can see we got a buy signal here. This arrow right here is pretty much where it's pointing to in terms of the buying. Again, it's hard to see because we zoom out on the charts, but you can see it didn't time it perfectly. But again, if I measure the downside from that candle, you can see it's 15%. I mean, 15% is a lot to a lot of people, but when you consider the upside, I mean, that's essentially nothing. Okay, that's pretty much nothing. So in terms of the upside here, it would have been a massive 238% gain. Again, before that, we got one right here, which at this point was actually pretty much at the lows for that time. So between signal to signal is about 117% gain. And the only other one that we got on the weekly time frame was right here, which was not quite the bottom. Again, there was about a 6% drop, but the move up from there was about 56%. This one would have been a no-brainer. I would have seen the buy signal, probably already would have been buying at the support when I saw this kind of triple bottom. And then I would have saw the buy signal and said, okay, either I'm glad I bought in or, I'll continue to buy in. So there is that. And then we got another, basically a double buy signal here. So we got one arrow here, price still went down. Again, that's kind of a divergence. And then we got another buy signal pretty much right up in here. And you can see this big fat green candle. Again, the timing of all this lines up perfectly. So we got Q4, which is bullish for pretty much all assets. We got the halving year. Q4 of the halving year especially is bullish, especially for Bitcoin related products. We got the elections. We got the Fed cutting rates. You got the M2 money supply starting to flow bullishly. They're starting to print money. So that's all very good. It's all lining up perfectly, right? That's what we want to see. And then MSTR, last one here. So if I go back in time, you can see we got a signal right here, pretty much back during the bear market lows. MSTR would have, they didn't have a 10-to-1 stock split at that time, so it still would have been very expensive. But you can see the drawdown here was only about 14%, whereas the move up was just insane. If you had bought at this signal, again, we're looking for pretty much the lows on the market here. So 451% gainer. And going back in time here, you guys can pretty much see that MSTR, with the exception of this signal right here, pretty much all of these were at lows. And last but not least, we have also gotten another one recently after the breakout of this bull flag right here on this red candle, as a matter of fact. So most of these indications have indicated that the low is in. So my guess is MicroStrategy is probably going to go higher from here. Again, the MACD just turned bullish. I actually am going to get rid of this. I'm going to pull back up the RSI. So you can see that back here during March, we were seriously overbought compared to where we are now. But as of right now, not so much. We're not even really overbought. We're kind of just barely above the bull zone here. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.